In the spring of 2015, I was hired by a good friend of mine to transform the yard of her suburban San Diego home to create a low-maintenance and low-water landscape using permaculture design principles. Years before, a pool had been installed along with a traditional sod and sprinkler landscape, and with little time or interest for yard maintenance, the grass had become overcome by weeds. The backyard had mostly become the domain of the owner's 5 dogs, save for a concrete patio area that was unbearably hot in the summertime. The front yard was in a similar state. The grass lawn now brown and dying thanks to the owner's awareness of the great need to conserve water in Southern California. Presented with a nearly blank slate, over the next 3 months, my partner and I sought to create an interconnected and pleasant environment that worked with, instead of against, the natural patterns of the Mediterranean climate of San Diego. The Mediterranean climate is characterized by very long, hot summers with little or no rainfall, interrupted by relatively short periods of powerful winter storms. So my aim was to capture and store as much water as possible during the rainy season, in the hope that throughout the summer months, the landscape would need little to no additional water from irrigation. Fortunately, the house, which was built in 1927, had a roof that was designed to collect water and funnel it out of a single downspout in the backyard. The water from this roof, along with the roof of a detached garage, was directed into 2 infiltration basins that run along the outside of the pool. We dug these basins by hand, leveling out the bottom so that water would spread evenly over a large area, and then filled the basins with gravel and recycled concrete paving stones, which were set 2 inches below the level of the pool edge. The concrete chunks, also known as urbanite, were used to build a large planter along the southern edge of the yard as well. Working with the urbanite and laying out such a large area turned out to be an incredible amount of work, but it was done to create a very long-lasting and attractive surface that would allow water to soak through, while making the task of cleaning up after the dogs much easier. The gaps between the concrete were filled with soil, and then planted and seeded with creeping thyme, in the hope that it will eventually provide a low ground cover, filling in the gaps. In the front yard, which lacked any downspouts from the roof, we dug a drain down the center strip of the driveway, which was then filled with gravel. This directed water collected on the driveway into a dry creek feature snaking through the front yard, which was also level across its length, much like a swale. The soil removed from this trench, along with some soil from the backyard, was used to create more texture in the flat front yard and make a more interesting landscape. Although not much interested in vegetable gardening, the owner was enthusiastic about the idea of growing food at home, and so many edibles were planted in the form of perennial fruit trees, vines, and fruiting cacti. A mature lemon tree was already growing in a little-used side yard, although much in need of a pruning. These edibles included a pomegranate tree, a pink guava, an avocado, a mandarin orange, and a strawberry tree, Arbutus marina, a beautiful and drought-tolerant relative of the madrone. Also planted were the passion fruit vine, male and female kiwi vines, 2 varieties of grape, along with the dragon fruit pitaya cactus, a cousin of the 2 varieties of fruiting pitaya cacti already growing in the backyard. Beneath the guava and pomegranate trees, we planted a small guild of beneficial and medicinal plants, including comfrey, yarrow, and strawberries. The rest of the landscape was filled in with various drought-tolerant, medicinal, and pollinator-friendly plants, a few California natives, as well as a wide variety of succulents in the much drier front yard. Although the goal is for the plants to eventually thrive without additional irrigation, a drip system was installed to help the young plants become established and support the fruit trees while they expand their root systems. To cap off the project and create a more inviting environment for the human residents of the home, I built a large pergola over the entire concrete patio area between the house and garage. This will eventually be grown over with passion fruit and grapevines, creating an enjoyable shaded space under a canopy of cooling green leaves. This canopy will completely change the once unbearable microclimate during the summer months, and allow the patio to be enjoyed year-round. After 3 months of hard work, the front and backyards were transformed from water and maintenance-hungry lawns, out of context with their natural environment, and of little use to anyone but the dogs, into diverse and beautiful landscapes that harvest their own water, provide free food for humans and wildlife, require little maintenance, and create a welcoming environment for the residents and their guests. All of this guided by the ethics and principles of permaculture design, ensuring that the many different elements, living and physical, are connected beneficially, creating an ecosystem which exists well within the context of its greater environment. Shortly before making the move to the ant village in western Montana, I set the irrigation timers and left with the hopes that my first full implementation of a permaculture design would work as I expected it to and survive its first Southern California summer. Well, the summer of 2015 turned out to be the hottest summer on record, and it wasn't until my recent visit in December that I was able to see how the project is coming along. With a new baby on the way, I wasn't surprised to learn that the owner and her family had done almost no maintenance on the yard, beyond turning off the irrigation completely with the arrival of the first winter storms. However, I was happy to find that the yard is in remarkably good shape. The only plants that have not survived are the kiwis and a couple small herbs, and the trees are all looking good, with the exception of the avocado, which is showing some signs of salt damage. Many of the plants are showing signs of overwatering, as the irrigation schedule was never adjusted down in my absence. The passion fruit vine grew a surprising amount over the past 7 months, likely because of the ample watering, and has covered much of the garage wall and is creeping up the pergola. This green wall should make the garage bedroom much cooler during the summer months. The grapevines are also growing quite vigorously and are well on their way to covering their half of the pergola. The lemon tree seems to have appreciated its pruning and responded with a bounty of fruit. We picked a total of 14 bags full of lemons to relieve the tree of its extra weight, and had plenty to share with the neighbors. Before I left, I seeded the soil between the urbanite pavers with creeping thyme, and set up a temporary sprinkler system to help the seeds germinate. This proved to be ineffective, however, and much of the soil is still bare. There are some patches of healthy creeping thyme plants from a few cuttings we planted, along with some bunch grasses blown in from the neighbor's yard, as well as some various other low-growing volunteers. I spread a new round of creeping thyme seeds in the hope that the winter rains will help them germinate naturally. In the end, it doesn't matter what grows in these spaces, as long as it has a low form and outcompetes the taller weed species. There was one patch of taller weeds, mostly mallow and thistle, near the back of the pool, perhaps a result of water seeping out from the planter's irrigation, or the fact that this area was the least disturbed part of the yard. In any case, I consider weeds a natural pattern, soil builders in fact, and trying to eradicate them is a losing battle. Instead, I like to rip out the less desirable plants before they seed if possible, and encourage the other weed species which have a more desirable form. Ripping out the taller weeds 2 or 3 times a year should help the lower growing weeds gain the upper hand. The backyard is doing well, but it could use a little bit of guidance to help it along, and some cleaning up to improve it visually. I began by trimming up some of the more spindly growth in the large planter caused by overwatering, laying the cuttings down beneath the plants to act as mulch and help build a healthy soil. The bushes and herbs will hopefully grow back in a more dense form without the excess water. Next, I trimmed up the jasmine vine and trained it back onto the wires attached to the fence. Then I moved on to the grapes, untangling the mass of vines and redirecting the different leaders up different parts of the pergola, so that it will be covered more quickly. I did much the same thing with the passion fruit vine, directing it towards the part of the pergola I intend it to cover. This plant may need to be cut back occasionally to prevent it from overtaking the grapevines, but I am hopeful that it will slow its growth with less water. The front yard was doing quite good as well, with one particular variety of succulent doing extremely well. We transplanted this vining ground cover succulent along the slopes of the new mounds to help prevent erosion, and ran a drip line with emitters every 9 inches along their path. It proved to be very vigorous with the addition of water and grew over a large area. The irrigation has now been turned off to the front yard, perhaps permanently, and this will likely prevent it from spreading further. It does create a nice thick living mulch, which will help hold moisture in the soil, so I'm not too concerned about it. We cut it back from the other succulents it was starting to overwhelm, as well as the strawberry tree, which is doing quite well and showing its first flower buds. Overall, I think the project is coming along very well, especially considering the fact that it has received what amounts to 1 day of maintenance over the last 7 months. There are a few small surprises and lessons to be learned, but I am pleased to see how it is growing and excited to watch it progress over the years to come.
Thank you for watching. If you like my videos, please do subscribe and feel free to share them around social media. These videos are made possible by the generous donations of my supporters. So if you'd like to make a donation, you can do so via PayPal or Bitcoin. If you'd like to offer ongoing support, please do consider becoming a patron through my page at patreon.com/JessGrimes. I've got a lot planned for this year, and lots more videos in the works, which I hope will inspire others to take the leap into their own adventures in homesteading and permaculture. So once again, thank you for watching, and thank you for joining me in building a better world through permaculture.